The mining station Kepler 442b shook violently as another impact rattled its hull. Commander HFY of the Galactic Defense Corps pressed his six-fingered hands against the tactical display, watching red dots swarm across the screen like angry insects. His mandibles clicked nervously as he studied the readouts. "Status report," he barked to his mixed-species crew. Lieutenant Vork, a hulking Bruthan with stone-gray skin, looked up from his console. "The Shadowkin fleet has deployed their Warbeast, Commander. Mining Station Delta 7 went dark 3 minutes ago." HFY felt his blood run cold. The Shadowkin Warbeast was legend among military circles, a creature of pure destruction that had laid waste to 17 colonies in the past cycle. No weapon had ever pierced its hide. No strategy had ever contained it. Once released, it consumed everything in its path until the Shadowkin recalled it to their ships. "Evacuate all non-essential personnel," HFY ordered. "Get them to the escape pods." "Sir," came a trembling voice from Communications Officer Rill, a delicate Christian whose translucent skin flickered with nervous energy. "The human transport ship requested permission to dock. They have civilians aboard, including families." HFY paused. Humans were still relatively new to the galactic community. Having joined only 50 cycles ago, most species viewed them as weak, soft creatures despite their surprising resilience in certain situations. Their children were considered especially fragile. "Grant them docking permission. Bay 7, he decided. At least we can evacuate them with our people." The station shuddered again, and through the massive viewport, HFY saw it. The Warbeast. It moved through space like a living shadow, its form shifting and writhing. Tentacles the size of starship hulls lashed out, crushing smaller vessels. Its hide seemed to absorb laser fire and plasma bursts without any visible effect. Where its presence touched the void, reality itself seemed to bend and twist. "All defensive batteries, focus fire on the creature," HFY commanded, though he knew it was useless. The Warbeast turned toward their station, and HFY could swear he felt its attention like a physical weight. Ancient malevolence radiated from its form. This creature had existed since before most species had achieved spaceflight, bred and modified by the Shadowkin for one purpose: total annihilation. "Commander, the human ship has docked," Vork reported. "They're requesting immediate assistance with their cargo bay doors. Some kind of mechanical failure." "Send a repair team," HFY replied absently, his attention fixed on the approaching nightmare. "How long until the Warbeast reaches us?" 18 minutes at current velocity, Rill answered, her voice barely above a whisper. The repair team's report came back quickly. "Sir, the humans have some kind of livestock in their cargo hold. They can't evacuate without getting the animals out first. Their children refuse to leave without them." HFY's mandibles clicked in frustration. Humans and their inexplicable emotional attachments to lesser creatures. "Tell them they have 10 minutes. After that, we seal the station and prepare for impact." As if responding to his words, the Warbeast let out a sound that transcended normal hearing. A psychic scream that made every sentient being on the station clutch their heads in pain. Several crew members collapsed. The lights flickered as the creature's mere presence began to interfere with their systems. "Commander," Vork called out, his voice strained. "Sensors are detecting massive energy buildup from the Warbeast. It's preparing to feed." HFY knew what that meant. The creature didn't just destroy, it consumed the life force of everything it encountered, growing stronger with each victim. Entire worlds had been left as barren husks after its feeding frenzies. "All hands prepare for emergency evacuation," he announced over the ship's communication system. "This is not a drill." The tactical display showed escape pods beginning to launch from various sections of the station. But many bays reported civilians still trying to board, including the human families with their stubborn attachment to their animals. 15 minutes to contact, Rill reported, her crystalline form now flickering erratically with terror. Through the viewport, HFY watched as the Warbeast's form seemed to expand, its tentacles reaching out to caress the hull of a nearby cargo vessel. The ship simply crumbled to dust at its touch, its crew's life essence flowing into the creature like streams of light. "Commander, the humans report they're almost finished loading their animals," Vork announced. "But their cargo bay supervisor says one of their children wandered into the holding area and won't come out." "Tell them to leave the child and evacuate now," HFY snapped. "One life is not worth the destruction of everyone aboard." But even as he said it, he knew humans wouldn't abandon their young. It was one of their most well-documented traits, their fierce protection of their offspring, even at the cost of their own lives. The Warbeast was close enough now that its psychic emanations were causing system failures throughout the station. Emergency lights bathed everything in red, and the constant vibration made it difficult to stand. 12 minutes to contact, Rill gasped, her form now barely maintaining coherence. Zexhai made his decision. Seal Bay 7, we can't wait any longer. But before the command could be executed, a new voice crackled over the communication system, young, clear, and utterly unafraid. No, wait, the voice said in accented standard galactic. I can help. Zexhai stared at the communication panel. The voice belonged to a human child. Who is this? He demanded. My name is Sarah, the voice replied calmly. I'm in the cargo bay with the animals, and I think I know why the big creature is so angry. Outside the viewport, the Warbeast had stopped its advance. For the first time in recorded history, the creature of legend had paused in its assault, its massive form hovering motionless in space as if listening to something only it could hear. Commander Zexhai stared at the communication panel in disbelief. The human child's voice had somehow reached not just the station's internal systems, but the creature itself seemed to have heard her. The Warbeast floated motionless, its writhing tentacles stilled for the first time since the battle began. Child, this is Commander Zexhai of the Galactic Defense Corps, he said carefully. You need to evacuate immediately. That creature will destroy everything in its path. But it's not trying to destroy anything, Sarah's voice replied with the matter-of-fact certainty only children possessed. It's looking for something. Can't you feel how sad it is? Lieutenant Vork's massive frame trembled as he looked up from his sensors. Commander, the creature's energy signatures are changing. The destruction patterns have stopped completely. Zexhai felt his world tilting. In 300 cycles of military service, he had never encountered anything like this. The Warbeast was a force of nature, a weapon of mass destruction. It didn't experience emotions like sadness. Sarah, he said slowly. What do you mean it's sad? Well, when Moobert gets scared, he makes angry noises too, the child explained. Moobert is our space cow. Sometimes the grown-ups think he's being mean, but really he just misses his friends back on Earth. Dr. Elena Vasquez's voice suddenly joined the channel, Sarah's mother, a xenobiologist aboard the human transport. Commander, I apologize for my daughter. She has a condition that makes her unusually sensitive to emotional resonances in creatures. We've learned not to dismiss her insights. Mama, the big creature isn't angry, Sarah continued, her voice carrying across the comm with crystal clarity. It's lonely. It's been looking for its family for a very, very long time. On the tactical display, something unprecedented was happening. The Shadowkin fleet, which had been maintaining attack formation behind their Warbeast, was pulling back. Their ships seemed as confused as everyone else by their weapons' sudden passivity. Commander, Communications Officer Rill whispered, her crystalline form stabilizing for the first time since the attack began. I'm detecting communication attempts from the Shadowkin flagship. They're demanding to know what we've done to their creature. Zexhai ignored the Shadowkin for now. Sarah, are you saying you can communicate with the Warbeast? Not like talking with words, the child replied thoughtfully. More like feeling talking, like when I help scared animals at Mama's work. I just listen to what they're feeling and try to understand. Dr. Vasquez's voice carried a note of scientific excitement despite the danger. Commander, Sarah has demonstrated remarkable abilities with various species. Her neural patterns show unusual activity in regions associated with empathic response and cross-species communication. The Warbeast began to move again, but not toward the station. Instead, it turned slowly, gracefully, its massive form rotating until it faced the Shadowkin fleet. Even across the void of space, everyone aboard the station could sense a change in the creature's demeanor. Oh, Sarah said softly. Oh no, the mean people took it away from its babies. A long, long time ago. Zexhai felt his mandibles click involuntarily. Historical records spoke of the Shadowkin's conquest of the void reaches 2 millennia ago, where they had enslaved or destroyed dozens of species. Could it be possible that the Warbeast was not a weapon they had created, but a parent they had stolen? Sarah, he said urgently, can you ask the creature what it wants? There was silence for several moments. Throughout the station, crew members held their breath. Outside, the Warbeast's form seemed to shimmer, its tentacles reaching out not in aggression, but in what almost looked like supplication. "It wants to go home," Sarah finally said, her young voice heavy with sympathy. "It wants to find its children. But the mean people put something in its head that makes it hurt everyone when it tries to think about home." The implications hit Zexhai like a plasma bolt, a control device. The Shadowkin have been using some kind of neural controller to force the creature to attack. "Sarah." Dr. Vasquez's voice carried new urgency. "Can you tell if the creature knows how to remove the device?" Another pause. The Warbeast's massive form began to glow with bioluminescent patterns that pulsed like a heartbeat. Beautiful and alien, but somehow deeply sad. "It's too scared to try," Sarah reported. "Every time it thinks about fighting the bad thing in its head, the device makes it hurt people. It doesn't want to hurt anyone anymore." 10 minutes until the Shadowkin fleet reaches optimal firing range, Vork announced grimly. "They're moving to flank the creature. I think they're planning to destroy it rather than lose control." The reality of the situation crystallized for Zexhai. The Shadowkin couldn't allow word of their weapon's true nature to spread. A creature enslaved against its will would generate sympathy across the galaxy. Better to destroy it and claim it had been corrupted by enemy action. "Sarah," Zexhai said quickly, "we need to help the creature, but I don't know how. Our weapons can't penetrate its hide and we can't safely approach it." "I could try to help it be brave," Sarah offered. "Sometimes when animals are really scared, they just need someone to be calm near them." "Can I go outside?" "Absolutely not." Dr. Vasquez's voice was firm. "Sarah, space is dangerous. You can't breathe out there." "But Mama, I wouldn't be really outside. I'd be in my suit, like when we went to see the space dolphins near Neptune. And I think the creature would feel better if someone came closer." Zexhai realized what the child was suggesting, a spacewalk in the middle of a battle zone, to approach a creature that had destroyed entire fleets. It was madness. It was also the only plan anyone had offered that didn't involve running away. "Commander," came a new voice over the comm. "Captain Torres from the human transport. I volunteer to escort the child. Our ship has the best personal shielding systems in the fleet." "This is insane," Zexhai muttered, then spoke louder. "All vessels maintain current positions. Humanity, you have permission to attempt whatever this is." As he gave the order, Zexhai couldn't help but think that if this worked, it would be the most ridiculous victory in military history. And if it didn't work, they would all die watching a human child try to comfort a cosmic horror with kind words. The Warbeast seemed to sense the approaching intent. Its bioluminescent patterns shifted, becoming brighter, more hopeful. For the first time since the battle began, Zexhai dared to believe they might all survive this encounter. Captain Maria Torres checked Sarah's environmental suit for the third time, her weathered hands moving with practiced efficiency. The child stood patiently in the airlock of the human transport vessel, New Horizons, her helmet reflecting the emergency lighting. "Remember, Aja," Captain Torres said in her gentle Spanish accent, "we stay tethered at all times. If anything goes wrong, we retreat immediately." "I understand, Captain Maria," Sarah replied, her voice calm through the suit's comm system, "but I don't think the creature will hurt us. It's too sad to be angry anymore." Through the airlock's porthole, the massive form of the Warbeast dominated the view. Up close, its true size became apparent. Easily the length of 3 starships, its body a complex arrangement of what looked like living shadow and starlight. Bioluminescent patterns raced across its surface in waves, creating a hypnotic display of alien beauty. Commander Zexhai's voice crackled through the communication array. "Transport New Horizons, be advised that Shadowkin vessels are moving to intercept. You have approximately 8 minutes before they reach firing range." "Acknowledged, Command," Torres replied. "Beginning EVA now." The airlock cycled and suddenly they were floating in the void. Sarah gasped in wonder despite having done spacewalks before. The Warbeast's presence seemed to fill the entire universe, its gentle luminescence painting the nearby asteroids in shades of blue and silver. "It's beautiful," Sarah whispered. Torres activated her suit's thrusters, guiding them both toward the creature. As they approached, she noticed something that the long-range sensors had missed: scars. The Warbeast's hide was crisscrossed with old wounds, some clearly surgical in nature. "Sarah," Torres said quietly, "do you still sense the creature's emotions?" "Yes," the child replied, her voice growing sad. "It's so hurt, Captain Maria, not just in its feelings, in its body too. The mean people cut into it many times." As they drew closer, Details became visible that no military scanner had ever detected. The creature's form wasn't entirely organic. Metallic implants jutted from various points along its body, pulsing with sickly red light. Neural interface ports, if Torres had to guess, designed to override the creature's natural instincts. "Control stations, are you seeing this?" Torres reported. "The creature has extensive cybernetic modifications. This isn't a weapon, it's a victim." Dr. Vasquez's voice joined the channel from the New Horizons. "The surgical markings suggest systematic modification over centuries. This creature has been tortured." 50 meters from the Warbeast, Sarah suddenly raised her hand. "Stop, please." Torres halted their approach. "What is it?" "It's scared," Sarah said softly. "It wants to trust us, but the bad things in its head are telling it we're enemies. I need to show it we're friends." Before Torres could object, Sarah began to sing. It was a simple Earth lullaby, one that children had sung for generations. Her young voice carried clearly through the comm system, and somehow, impossibly, seemed to resonate in the vacuum around them. The effect on the Warbeast was immediate. Its thrashing tentacles slowed, then stilled. The aggressive red glow of its cybernetic implants flickered and dimmed. Most remarkably, its bioluminescent patterns began to synchronize with the rhythm of Sarah's song. "Impossible," came Lieutenant Vork's amazed voice from the station. "The creature's bio-readings are stabilizing. Stress hormones dropping to baseline levels. It remembers," Sarah said wonderingly, never stopping her song. "It remembers when it was little and its mama sang to it. Before the mean people came." Torres felt tears forming in her eyes. In 40 years of space service, she had seen wonders and horrors beyond imagination. But watching a human child soothe a cosmic horror with a lullaby ranked among the most extraordinary moments of her life. The Shadowkin fleet was closing rapidly now, their dark ships cutting through space like daggers. Their lead vessel was transmitting demands for the immediate destruction of their corrupted weapon, but those transmissions were being ignored by every ship in the area. "Sarah," Torres said gently, "the bad people are coming. Can you help the creature be brave enough to fight the things they put in its head?" Sarah nodded, her small form floating fearlessly near the massive alien.
"I'll try."
"But it's very scared. It's been hurting people for so long. It forgot how to be anything else." She switched from singing to speaking, her words carrying the simple honesty that only children possessed. "Hello, big friend. My name is Sarah. I know you're scared, but you don't have to be anymore. We want to help you go home." The Warbeast's response was unlike anything in recorded history. Its massive form began to curl inward, tentacles drawing close to its body in what could only be described as a defensive posture. But there was something else, hope. The creature's bioluminescence shifted to warmer colors, and its movements became less erratic. "Commander," came an urgent transmission from the New Horizon sensor array. "I'm detecting massive energy buildups from the Shadowkin fleet. They're preparing to fire everything they have. All ships, evasive maneuvers," Zexhai ordered. "Protect the EVA team." But Sarah held up her hand again. "Wait," she said with startling authority. "It's ready now." The Warbeast's form suddenly straightened, and for the first time, its attention turned fully toward the approaching Shadowkin fleet. But this wasn't the mindless aggression of a controlled weapon. This was the focused anger of a parent who had been separated from its children for 2,000 years. "Oh my," Sarah said softly. "It's remembering how to be angry at the right people." The creature's roar, when it came, was not the psychic scream of anguish they had heard before. This was something far more primal, the sound of a mother finding her cubs after a long hunt, only to discover that predators had been in her den. The Shadowkin fleet suddenly found themselves facing not a weapon they controlled, but an enemy they had created. And this enemy remembered every moment of pain, every forced atrocity, every day stolen from its young. "Captain Torres," Sarah said calmly, "I think we should move back now. The big friend needs room to work." Torres couldn't help but smile as she activated their thrusters. Only a human child would describe cosmic vengeance as work. The real battle was about to begin. The transformation was unlike anything anyone had witnessed. The Warbeast's form expanded not with the chaotic growth of an attacking predator, but with the deliberate purpose of a creature reclaiming its true nature. The cybernetic implants across its body sparked and sputtered as the creature's own neural patterns began to override their control signals, Commander. Zexhai watched from the station's command deck as the Shadowkin fleet realized their mistake. Their lead destroyer was already turning to flee, but the creature moved with impossible speed for something so massive. Tentacles that had once been weapons of mindless destruction now struck with surgical precision, targeting specific systems on the Shadowkin vessels. "Commander," Lieutenant Vork reported, his voice filled with awe. "The creature isn't destroying their ships. It's disabling their weapons and engines, leaving life support intact." Captain Torres and Sarah had retreated to a safe distance, but the child continued to speak softly to the Warbeast through her comm system. "That's right, big friend. You don't have to hurt the little people inside the ships. They're just scared too." The creature's response was remarkable. Each time it struck a Shadowkin vessel, it did so with restraint, crippling rather than destroying. This wasn't the rampage of a mindless weapon. This was the measured action of an intelligent being choosing mercy over vengeance. "Incoming transmission from the Shadowkin flagship," Communications Officer Rill announced, her crystalline form flickering with excitement. "Put it through," Zexai ordered. The image that appeared on the main screen was of a Shadowkin commander, his dark features twisted with rage and fear. The Shadowkin were a proud species, their elongated forms and midnight blue skin giving them a naturally intimidating appearance. But this one looked genuinely terrified. "You have corrupted our weapon with your human witchcraft," the Shadowkin commander hissed. "Return control immediately, or we will consider this an act of war." Zexai felt his mandibles click in what his species considered laughter. "Commander Veltar, I presume? Your weapon appears to have remembered what it was before you enslaved it. The creature is property of the Shadowkin Empire, acquired through legal conquest," Veltar snarled. "You have no right to interfere." "Legal conquest," Dr. Vasquez's voice cut in from the New Horizons. "Commander, I'm transmitting our sensor readings to all vessels in the area. These cybernetic modifications show clear signs of torture and forced neural control. This creature was enslaved, not conquered." Sarah's young voice joined the channel, still calm despite the tension. "The big friend says to tell the mean commander that its babies are still alive. It can feel them calling from far away." The effect of those words on the Shadowkin commander was immediate and dramatic. Veltar's confident expression crumbled, replaced by something approaching panic. "Impossible," he whispered. "The offspring were contained in the deep vaults. No one has accessed those chambers for—" He cut himself off, but the damage was done. Every recording device in the area had captured his admission. "The offspring are alive," Zexai repeated slowly. "You didn't just enslave this creature. You took its children hostage to ensure compliance." The Warbeast's reaction to learning its young were alive was profound. Its bioluminescent patterns shifted to brilliant golds and whites, and its movements became more animated. But underneath the joy there was something else: determination. "Commander Veltar," Zexai continued, "you are now facing not just a freed weapon, but a parent who knows her children are alive and imprisoned. I suggest you consider your options carefully, Liao." Shadowkin Commander's response was predictable. He ordered his remaining functional ships to form a defensive perimeter and began transmitting distress calls to his home fleet. But the Warbeast had other plans. "Oh," Sarah said softly. "It's not going to wait for permission. It's going home." The creature began to glow with energy patterns that made nearby sensors scream warnings. Space itself seemed to ripple around its massive form as it prepared for something unprecedented. "All ships, emergency retreat," Zexai ordered. "That creature is about to attempt some form of faster-than-light travel." But Sarah's voice cut through the chaos. "No, wait. It wants to take us with it. It says it needs witnesses, people who will tell the truth about what happened." Captain Torres looked at her instruments in amazement. "Commander, our ship is being enveloped in some kind of protective field. The creature is extending its own dimensional manipulation abilities to include us." Dr. Vasquez's excited voice joined the channel. "This is incredible. The creature isn't just capable of FTL travel. It's a natural dimensional manipulator. That's how it seemed to appear and disappear during previous battles. It wasn't teleporting, it was folding space. The Warbeast's form began to phase in and out of normal space-time, and the ships around it followed suit. The sensation was indescribable, like being turned inside out while remaining perfectly safe. "Mama," Sarah said wonderingly, "I can see its memories. It's showing me where it came from." Images flooded the communication channels, not visual recordings, but pure emotional memories shared directly from the creature's mind. Zex-Hi and his crew saw a world of living light, where creatures like the Warbeast swam through seas of liquid starlight. They saw a peaceful civilization of beings who communicated through bioluminescence and emotion, who had never known war until the Shadowkin arrived. They saw the capture, not just of the Warbeast but of dozens of its kind. They saw the surgical chambers where the Shadowkin had implanted their control devices. They saw the children, small versions of the great creature, locked in energy cages in the deepest vaults of a Shadowkin fortress world. And they saw the plan the Warbeast had been forced to carry out. The systematic destruction of worlds that might have allied against the Shadowkin, all to protect offspring it could never touch. 2,000 years, Dr. Vasquez whispered. This creature has been enslaved for 2,000 years, forced to destroy innocent worlds to protect its children. The transition through folded space ended abruptly, and they found themselves in orbit around a dark world covered in metal structures. The Shadowkin fortress world, the creature's prison and the location of its imprisoned young. All vessels, came a transmission from the planet's surface. You are in violation of Shadowkin territorial space. Surrender immediately or be destroyed. The Warbeast's response was to release a sound that transcended normal hearing, a call that reached out across the planet's surface and into its deepest vaults. It was answered by dozens of similar calls, weaker and smaller, but unmistakably the voices of its offspring. The children are calling back, Sarah reported, tears visible in her helmet. They remember their mama's voice. The creature's bioluminescence shifted to patterns of pure focused rage. After 2 millennia of forced servitude, the parent had found its young, and nothing in the universe was going to stop the reunion. The Shadowkin fortress world bristled with defensive installations, but they had been designed to keep enemies out, not to contain something that could fold space itself. The Warbeast moved through the planet's defensive perimeter like it didn't exist, its massive form phasing in and out of normal reality. Planetary defense grid is firing, Lieutenant Vork reported from his position aboard the mining station, which had somehow been brought along in the creature's dimensional wake. No effect. The creature is ignoring their weapons completely. Commander Zex-Hi watched in fascination as energy beams passed harmlessly through the Warbeast's form. The creature had learned to exist partially outside normal spacetime, making conventional weapons useless against it. Sarah, Captain Torres said gently, "Can you still communicate with our friend?" "Yes," the child replied, her voice filled with wonder. "It's so happy, Captain Maria. It can hear its babies calling and they sound healthy. The mean people kept them alive because they needed the mama to obey." Dr. Vasquez was frantically recording everything through the New Horizons sensors. The creature's dimensional abilities are unlike anything in our databases. It's not just folding space, it's existing in multiple dimensional states simultaneously. The Warbeast descended toward the planet's surface, and the Shadowkin forces found themselves facing an impossible tactical situation. How do you fight an enemy that can phase through your defenses and move through dimensions at will? "Incoming transmission from the planetary commander," Communications Officer Rill announced. The Shadowkin who appeared on screen was older than Commander Veltar, her dark features marked by centuries of military service. "I am General Kithara of the Shadowkin Defense Corps. Unknown vessels, you will withdraw immediately, or we will activate our final protocols." "General," Zex-Hi replied formally, "we are here as witnesses to the reunion of a parent with children unlawfully held captive for 2 millennia. Stand down your forces and release the creatures." Kithara's expression grew cold. "The specimens are property of the Shadowkin Empire, taken as spoils of war. We will not surrender them to alien terrorists." Sarah's voice cut through the diplomatic tension with childlike directness. "Lady General, the big friend isn't asking for permission anymore. It's just going to take its babies home." As if responding to her words, the Warbeast suddenly accelerated toward the planet's surface. Defensive installations fired everything they had, but the creature simply phased through the attacks. It was heading directly for a massive metal structure at the planet's north pole, the fortress where its children were imprisoned. "General," Dr. Vasquez transmitted urgently, "our sensors show multiple life signs in that facility. If your people remain in the building when the creature reaches it, they will be caught in the rescue attempt. We do not negotiate with terrorists," Kithara responded, but her confident tone had wavered. The Warbeast reached the fortress and did something no one expected. It stopped. Hovering above the metal structure, it began to emit a complex pattern of bioluminescent signals. "It's asking permission to enter," Sarah interpreted in amazement. "Even though it could just break in, it's asking the people inside to let it come get its babies peacefully." The response from the fortress was immediate. Weapons fire erupted from every turret and defensive position. The attacks passed harmlessly through the creature's phased form, but the message was clear. "They said no," Sarah reported sadly. "The big friend is very disappointed in their rudeness." The Warbeast's form solidified as it prepared to take direct action. But before it could move, another voice joined the communication channel, younger than General Cathera, speaking in rapid Shadowkin dialect. "General, this is Commander Zareth's voice returned to the channel, now tinged with desperation. General, the containment fields are failing. The specimen's harmonic resonance is overloading our systems. We need to evacuate now." The singing from the imprisoned creatures grew louder, transmitted through the facility's own communication systems. It was hauntingly beautiful, dozens of voices harmonizing in patterns that spoke of joy, hope, and unwavering love despite centuries of captivity. "The babies learned to sing together to remember their mama," Sarah explained, tears streaming down her face inside her helmet. "They never stopped believing she would come back for them." General Cathara's resolve finally cracked. "All personnel, evacuate the northern facility immediately." "This is a direct order." The Warbeast waited patiently as streams of Shadowkin soldiers and technicians fled the fortress. Only when the last evacuation transport had cleared the area did the creature move toward the massive metal structure. What happened next would be remembered in galactic history as one of the most gentle acts of destruction ever recorded. The Warbeast didn't smash through the walls or tear the building apart. Instead, it extended its consciousness into the facility's systems, understanding the layout and the location of each imprisoned offspring. The metal walls simply dissolved where the creature touched them, not destroyed but rather convinced to stop being solid. It was as if the Warbeast was asking the very atoms of the structure to step aside, and they obliged. "Incredible," Dr. Vasquez breathed. "The creature isn't using force at all. It's manipulating matter at the molecular level through some form of empathic resonance." The first of the offspring emerged into the daylight it hadn't seen for over 1,000 years. Smaller than its parent but unmistakably related, the young creature's bioluminescent patterns flashed with pure joy as it rushed toward the Warbeast. "Oh my," Sarah whispered. "They're so beautiful." One by one, 47 creatures emerged from their prison. Some moved slowly, cautious after centuries of captivity. Others raced toward their parent with abandonment. All of them sang with voices that made the very air shimmer with harmonics. The reunion was beyond words. The Warbeast enveloped its children in an embrace of light and dimensional energy, its massive form somehow managing to touch each of them simultaneously. The singing reached a crescendo that resonated through every ship in orbit, a sound of pure love that transcended species barriers. "I'm detecting massive energy fluctuations," Lieutenant Vork reported. "The creatures are preparing for another dimensional jump." "Where are they going?" Commander HFY asked. Sarah, still somehow connected to the Warbeast's consciousness, smiled through her tears. "Home. They're going home to the place with the seas of starlight. The big friend wants to show her babies the world they were born to inherit." The family of creatures began to glow with the same dimensional energy they had seen before. But this time the Warbeast turned toward the assembled ships and transmitted a final message. Not in words, but in pure emotion. Gratitude. Deep, boundless gratitude to the small human child who had listened when no one else could hear, and to all those who had chosen to help rather than hinder. "The big friend says thank you," Sarah translated unnecessarily. Every being present had felt the creature's appreciation directly. Ambassador Toran's ship moved closer. "Before you leave, please know that the Galactic Council will ensure this never happens again. Your species will be protected, and the Shadowkin will answer for their crimes." The Warbeast's response was a wave of forgiveness that surprised everyone. After 2,000 years of enslavement, the creature chose mercy over vengeance. "It says the important thing is that the babies are safe now," Sarah explained. "Everything else can be forgiven." The family of creatures began to fade from normal space-time, returning to their home dimension. But just before they disappeared completely, The smallest of the offspring broke away from the group and approached the new horizons. It extended what might have been a tentacle toward Sarah's helmet, and for a moment child and alien creature shared a direct connection. It says thank you for helping its mama be brave, Sarah reported, her voice filled with wonder. And it wants me to know that if humans ever need help, its family will remember the kindness. With that promise, the creatures vanished into folded space, leaving behind only the gentle echo of their song and the memory of one of the most extraordinary reunions in galactic history. From the facility, we have a situation. The specimens are responding to the entity's presence. Their containment fields are fluctuating. Maintain containment at all costs, Kethara ordered. Ma'am, the specimens aren't trying to break out, Zareth continued, sounding confused. They're singing. All 47 of them are producing harmonic frequencies that are resonating through the entire facility. Sarah laughed with delight. The babies are singing to their mama. They're so excited to see her again. The effect of this revelation on the listening crews was profound. 47 creatures held captive for centuries had maintained hope long enough to sing with joy at their parents' return. General Kethara, Commander Zexhai transmitted, his voice heavy with emotion. You have 47 sentient beings who have been imprisoned since childhood. By any definition of galactic law, this constitutes slavery and unlawful imprisonment. The law does not apply to non-citizens, Kethara replied stiffly. Actually, came a new voice over the channel. It does. Everyone turned their attention to the newcomer, a ship bearing the insignia of 3 months after the liberation of the Starlight Singers, as the galactic media had dubbed the Warbeast and its offspring, the ripple effects continued to spread across known space. Commander Zexhai stood in the council chambers on Galactic Prime, watching as the final verdict was delivered in the case against the Shadowkin Empire. The tribunal finds the Shadowkin government guilty of crimes against sapience, unlawful imprisonment and forced servitude of sentient beings, Ambassador Torin announced to the packed chamber. Reparations will be paid to establish a sanctuary system for rescued sentient species, and Shadowkin military expansion is hereby suspended pending full compliance with galactic law. It was the largest judgment in council history, but Zexhai found his attention drawn to the small observation gallery, where a human family sat quietly. Dr. Elena Vasquez held her daughter Sarah close, the child now something of a galactic celebrity, despite her family's attempts to maintain privacy. Sarah had become the youngest recipient of the Galactic Peace Medal, an honor that came with requests for interviews, documentary appearances, and speaking engagements across a dozen worlds. But the child seemed more interested in the small device she held, a harmonic resonator that could detect the dimensional signatures of the Starlight Singers. Any word from our friends? Zexhai asked as he approached the family during the tribunal recess. Sarah looked up with bright eyes. They're happy, Commander Zexhai. Really happy. The big friend says their homeworld is healing from the damage the mean people did long ago. Dr. Vasquez smiled at the commander.
Sarah receives what she calls feeling messages from them every few days.
The creatures appear to have established some form of quantum entanglement communication with her. It was just one of many unprecedented discoveries that had emerged from the encounter. The Starlight Singers' natural abilities had revolutionized understanding of dimensional physics, telepathic communication, and interspecies empathy. Research teams across the galaxy were studying the implications. Commander, Lieutenant Vork approached with a datapad. You have a priority message from Starfleet Command. Zexhai reviewed the message and felt his mandibles click with amusement. It seems the Galactic Defense Corps is establishing a new division, interspecies communication and conflict resolution. They're offering me the position of director. Will you take it? Dr. Vasquez asked. Before Zexhai could answer, Sarah suddenly straightened in her chair, her eyes growing wide. They're coming, she said softly. Who's coming? Her mother asked. All of them. The whole family. They want to say goodbye properly before they go to the deep, places where the old songs live. Alarms began sounding throughout the council complex as sensors detected massive dimensional distortions in the space around Galactic Prime. But these were celebration alarms, not warnings. The return of the Starlight Singers had been eagerly anticipated. The observation deck filled quickly as beings from dozens of species gathered to witness the phenomenon. Through the transparent aluminum windows, Space itself began to shimmer and fold. The Starlight Singers emerged from their dimensional pocket like living constellations, their bioluminescence painting the void in patterns of impossible beauty. The adult Warbeast, now known to her family as Harmony of Deep Waters, approached the space station with her 47 offspring trailing behind her like a school of cosmic fish. But they were not alone. Other adult singers had joined them, creatures that had been hiding in the deep dimensions for millennia, waiting for word that it was safe to emerge. There are hundreds of them, Dr. Vasquez breathed. An entire species that we thought was extinct. Sarah pressed her hand against the window, and immediately the lead singer responded, its patterns shifting to mirror the child's heartbeat. A wave of emotion washed over everyone present, gratitude, joy, and something else. Hope for the future. Harmony of Deep Waters says they're not hiding anymore, Sarah translated. They want to be part of the big community of star friends. But they're going to live in the places between spaces, where they can be safe and help other lost children find their way home. Ambassador Torrin stepped forward. Tell them that the Galactic Council formally welcomes the Starlight Singers as our newest member species. They will have full representation and protection under galactic law. The response from the creatures was a harmonic crescendo that resonated through the station's hull, a song of acceptance and partnership. Several of the younger singers broke away from the group and began performing what could only be described as aerial acrobatics, looping and diving through space in patterns that defied physics. The babies want to play, Sarah laughed. They're so excited to have friends who can visit. Commander HFY made his decision. Dr. Vasquez, I'll be accepting that position with the new division. I have a feeling we're going to need specialists in impossible diplomatic situations. And I'll be accepting the research grant to study interspecies empathic communication, she replied, with Sarah as my primary consultant, of course. Sarah was too absorbed in watching the singers to respond directly, but she did ask, can we visit them sometimes? In their new home? The answer came not from her mother, but directly from Harmony of Deep Waters. The great creature extended a tendril of light toward the station, and for a moment, everyone present shared a vision of the singer's dimensional realm, a place of liquid starlight and singing crystals, where thoughts became visible and emotions painted the sky. And in that vision, they saw themselves, human, Galactian, Bruthan, Christian, and dozens of other species living and working alongside the singers in a future of cooperation and understanding. They're showing us what could be, Sarah said wonderingly. A big family of all the different star peoples working together to help lost children everywhere find their way home. The vision faded, but the promise remained. As the Starlight Singers began their final departure for their new dimensional sanctuary, they left behind more than just gratitude. They left behind proof that sometimes the greatest victories come not from strength or strategy, but from a child's willingness to listen to those who have no voice. The universe had become a little bit brighter and a lot more hopeful. 5 years had passed since the liberation of the Starlight Singers, and the galaxy had changed in ways both subtle and profound. Commander HFY, now director of the Interspecies Communication and Conflict Resolution Division, stood on the observation deck of his flagship, watching his most unusual crew member at work. Sarah Vasquez, now 12 years old, floated in a specially designed meditation pod surrounded by quantum resonance equipment. Her abilities had grown stronger with age and training, allowing her to communicate across vast distances with species that had never been contacted before. Report, Sarah, HFY said gently into his communicator. The crystal people from the Andromeda signals are ready to talk, Sarah replied, her voice carrying the calm confidence of someone who had helped negotiate 17 first contact scenarios. They're very polite, but they're worried about their home star. It's getting sick and they don't know how to help it. Dr. Vasquez monitored her daughter's vital signs from the medical station. In the years since their first encounter with Harmony of Deep Waters, Sarah had become the galaxy's premier interspecies mediator. Her condition, once thought to be a simple sensitivity to animal emotions, had revealed itself to be something far more extraordinary. The Christians from the Helix Nebula are sending a medical team, Lieutenant Vork announced from his position at the communications array. He had requested transfer to HFY's new division after witnessing the power of empathic diplomacy. They specialize in stellar healing. This was the new reality. Species that had hidden from galactic society for millennia were emerging from isolation, drawn by stories of the human child who could hear their thoughts in the community that welcomed differences rather than feared them. Incoming priority transmission from Galactic Prime, Communications Officer Rill announced. Her crystalline form had evolved over the years, becoming more complex as she learned to interface directly with the quantum communication networks that connected peaceful species across dimensions. The transmission brought the image of Ambassador Tor-An, but he was not alone. Standing beside him was a figure that made everyone on the bridge smile. Harmony of Deep Waters had taken on a humanoid avatar form for diplomatic meetings, though her true nature was still visible in the gentle bioluminescence that played beneath her translucent skin. Director HFY, Torin began formally. We have a situation that requires your team's expertise. The Void Runners have made contact. Sarah immediately sat up in her meditation pod, her eyes growing wide. The lonely ones from the dark places? They're finally ready to come home? Harmony of Deep Waters' avatar smiled, an expression that somehow conveyed the vast warmth of her true form. The children of shadow have wandered long enough, little star singer. They call for help, but they fear the light dwellers will not accept them. HFY understood immediately. The Void Runners were a nomadic species that had fled galactic civilization after a catastrophic war 3,000 years ago. They had been living in the empty spaces between star systems, gradually becoming more alien and isolated with each generation. They're afraid, Sarah said softly, still connected to the communication network. They've been alone for so long they've forgotten how to be with other people. But they're tired of running. Dr. Vasquez checked her readings. Sarah, are you able to sense their emotional state from this distance? Harmony of Deep Waters is helping me, Sarah replied. She's like a big antenna that can reach really far. The Void Runners are very sad, but they're also hopeful. They've been watching us help other lost peoples, and they want to try again. This was exactly the kind of situation the new division had been created for. In the 5 years since its establishment, they had successfully mediated first contact with 17 previously unknown species, resolved 43 interspecies conflicts, and established the sanctuary network that now protected over 200 formerly enslaved or endangered sentient species. Understood, HFY replied. Sarah, can you let them know we're coming? And that we understand what it's like to feel different? Sarah nodded and closed her eyes, reaching out through the quantum network that connected all empathic species. Her message traveled across the galaxy in moments, carried by the linked consciousness of the Starlight Singers, the crystal entities of the Helix Nebula, and dozens of other species who had learned to trust in compassionate communication. The response came back almost immediately, not in words, but in a wave of emotion so powerful, it brought tears to everyone's eyes. Desperate hope mixed with ancient fear, the feelings of beings who had convinced themselves they were monsters discovering that someone still believed they could be heroes. They said yes, Sarah whispered. They're coming to the meeting place in the neutral zone, but they want me to promise something. What do they want? Harmony of Deep Waters asked gently. They want me to promise that if they're too different, if they've changed too much to be part of the galactic family, I'll tell them the truth. They don't want to hope if there's no real chance. HFY felt his mandibles click with determination. Tell them that difference isn't the same as wrong. And tell them that a human child once convinced a creature of cosmic power to remember love instead of pain. If she could do that, she can certainly help them find their way home. Sarah smiled and reached out once more across the quantum network. Her message carried not just words, but the accumulated experiences of 5 years, helping the lost and lonely find their place in a galaxy that was learning to celebrate diversity rather than fear it. The response that came back was pure joy. Set course for the neutral zone, HFY ordered, and send word to the sanctuary network. It looks like we're about to welcome some more family members home. As the ship turned toward its destination, Sarah remained in her meditation pod, but now she was humming softly, the same lullaby she had sung to Harmony of Deep Waters 5 years ago. The song had become an anthem of sorts, played at every first contact ceremony and translated into hundreds of languages. But Sarah knew something the others didn't. In the deep places where the Starlight Singers made their home, new songs were being born. Songs about children who refused to let anyone remain lost, about communities that grew stronger through inclusion, and about a galaxy where empathy had become the most powerful force for peace. The age of conquest was ending. The age of understanding had begun, and at its heart was a simple truth that a human child had taught the galaxy. Sometimes the most powerful word in any language is not no or attack or surrender. Sometimes the most powerful word is yes. Yes, you belong here. Yes, you matter. Yes, you are home.